the federal horse race. We'll have the latest polls on the issues, parties, and the leaders. Plus, hear about explosive concerns developing inside the Conservative Party.
It's the end of the first full week of the federal election campaign, with the party leaders scrambling around the country. This compressed race, there's only a month left. We're starting our show off today with the latest polls. Ipsos CEO Darrell Bricker joins us now. He, of course, has the latest numbers. People keen to know. We've heard a lot about the polls and changes this week. Darrell, the big question a lot of people are asking, and that has been big inside the campaigns, is who's best to deal with the Canada-U.S. relationship and Donald Trump. What are your numbers saying about that?
Well, there's no disagreement on this. The Liberals are ahead of the Conservatives by 40 points on this question, 60-20. The NDP is not even in the game. If this is the ballot question, you can see what's going to happen.
Why do you think that question is so important in this election?
Well, it's really important because it's the one that's really driving a lot of what's going on in the news. And as Canadians get more engaged in the election campaign, they're taking their cues from things like what they're watching today. They're also very worried about the effect of this on their own personal lives. So it's become a big issue, and it's the one we're focusing on.
It's becoming a big issue in the Conservative campaign. We're going to talk to one of our journalists about that in just a few moments. But we've got more interesting numbers to go through here. One of the big questions for the Liberals, do they deserve re-election? The Conservatives are trying to say, no, they don't. This is the same Liberal government. The Liberals are saying, no, we're a new Liberal government. It's the Mark Carney government. What do Canadians think about whether the Liberals deserve re-election?
Well, looking at the graphic you have up, you would think, oh, geez, most people don't think that the Liberals deserve to be reelected. But, 46%, if they actually show up for the Liberals on election day, that's a big majority. The other thing is, when we were tracking this, and we track it quite regularly on behalf of Global News, a couple of months ago, this number, the time for a change number, the 50%, was 78. So there's been a big, big change in the desire of the public to change the government.
One of the other questions people think about, because when we vote for parties, realistically in our system, a lot of people think about who they want to be prime minister versus the MP they're voting for. What are the numbers telling you about who Canadians believe is the best prime minister, and how close is that race right now?
Well, it's not close at all. We see Mark Carney ahead of Pierre Poilievre by 11 points on this. Jagmeet Singh not even in the game. And given that this is an election that has moved from being about change into one being about leadership, the leader of the Liberal Party, Prime Minister Mark Carney, is in very good shape.
We're obviously quite a ways out from an election. I mean, we say only a month left. Of course, in politics, a month left is potentially centuries for opportunities for mistakes or victories to be had. But if the election was held tomorrow, how would Canadians vote?
Well, if we leave the undecideds in, it's 38 for the Liberals, the Conservatives at 32, and the NDP at 8, which is tragic for them. But a 6-point lead. But if you take out the undecideds from this, and those are people who probably aren't voting anyway, it's 44-38, a 6-point lead. That's enough to be knocking on the door for a majority.
That's the next question I had for you. Is I know it's always tough to tell majority minority, but there was a very clear Conservative majority that we were headed for before Mark Carney came in as the leader. Things have changed drastically. How certain do you think those majority minority numbers are, and how they might play out?
As you said earlier, there's a lot of time to go here, and particularly when you're dealing with a leader that people are just getting to know. The things that you're going to be talking today about on the rest of the show, these are things that could cause some of these numbers to change. And so you're going to have to keep a really close look on what's going on. It's very volatile, and I think anybody saying that they know how this is going to end at the end of April is probably should wait before they make their prediction.
One last question for you, Darrell. Tory support is often underestimated in polls. We saw this in the U.S. election. We saw it recently in the Ontario election here. Do you think that the polling numbers for the Conservatives are higher than what we're seeing being publicly expressed to the people who work for your company when they contact Canadians?
Well, they could be a little bit, but the other subtlety that you see in this, Mercedes, is you look at 44-38 and you say, okay, well, that's the game. But as you know, the game in Canada is not about winning popular vote, it's about winning seats. And when you look at the regions, the gap in Ontario is only 4 points between the Liberals and the Conservatives, and they are tied in the 905, where elections are usually won. So even though there's a 6-point gap, this is still a very close election. There's a lot that's going to happen going forward, and you shouldn't be making any claims about knowing what the future is at this moment.
Still anyone's race there. Thanks so much for joining us, Daryl. Always great to see you.
Thanks, Mercedes.